to you and thank you for joining us on Decision 2017. It is the 28th of August 2017, and of course every Monday we have This Is the Point coming your way, and we shall be looking deeply at what is happening as far as the Supreme Court is concerned today. We shall be also crossing over there to give you a wall-to-wall, wire-to-wire live coverage of the proceeding from the Supreme Court today. Also, on this show, we'll be discussing a lot of issues in regard, of course, to the ruling and, of course, also what is happening in the counties and looking at what is happening as far as politics is concerned on the issues of salaries and also the governance of the county as well. We have our guests already in studio with us. We shall be drilling deeper, much more later in the course of the program today. But before we proceed, let's see what also is a good, the bad, and the ugly in our dailies this morning. Fresh off the press, we begin with the Daily Nation. Supreme battle as Uhuru Raila papers allowed. This is what is on the front page of the Daily Nation today. Echoes from 2013 as lawyers tussle over let evidence. The clearest indication yet that this will be a bruising bear. All contest judges threw away implications by NASA and Jubilee to block each other's evidence as Githu allowed as friend of court. That story continues on page 2 and 5 of the Daily Nation today. Now, at stake, guarding poll data in servers. NASA wants access to IBC server logs as well as the gadgets used to identify voters and transmit results. But Uhuru Kenyatta and the IBC, through their lawyers, say that will compromise the election management system and that the electoral agency will need time to back up the information first. This ruling to be made today. And we have a quote here from Haben Nasir Abdullahi for Uhuru Kenyatta, the senior counsel, saying, quote unquote, it is trite law that the practice that a party cannot depart from its pleadings. What NASA is essentially doing is demanding for evidence. They're saying that if we don't get this evidence, our case will collapse. This story continues, as I mentioned, inside the Daily Nation today. You can see also a related picture there on the front page of the Daily Nation. No plastic bags starting today, be reminded. And the ban on plastic bags takes effect today, and it has the full support of governors who yesterday said it will yield a clean environment. Cabinet Secretary for Environment, Professor Judy Wahungu, announced the ban on the use, manufacture and importation of plastic bags on February the 28th this year. But yesterday, Council of Governors Chairman Joseph Nanok, in a statement to newsrooms, said county bosses will work with the Ministry of Environment to enforce the ban countrywide. And this story continues at the back page of the Daily Nation this morning. Let's see what we have on the front page of the Star. And this is what is your splash today. Raila, Cannon is unstoppable, will get justice. Odinga asks Kenyans to pray to get to the promised land. Kenyans will liberate themselves from graft's political oppression, deceit. This story continues on page 2 of the Star. And you can see them also here. This is Suba MP John Mbadi, NASA principals Kalonzo Musyoka, Raila Odinga, and Bungoma Senator Mrs. Wetangula and Kisumu woman Rep Rosa Buyu in Uhuru Park during the Repentance and Holiness Nairobi Crusade yesterday. Also, Supreme Court to start hearing Raila Odinga's petition against Kenyatta. NEMA sends out officers, cops to ensure plastic ban compliance. Unite, deliver on promises and solve residents' problems. This is what also the Deputy President is saying. This is what is on the front page of the Star this morning. The People Daily is up next. And this is what we have as the splash today. Supreme Court dilemma over IBC servers. It says that bench to rule today on whether to compel poll agency to give details of election transmission results and forms. This story continues on page 5 of the People Daily. You can follow that story also. I have a hard copy of the Standard as well. Let me try and show you. I didn't have the soft copy earlier. Judges defer ruling on Raila vote audit. Judges defer ruling on Raila vote audit. This is what is on the front page of the Standard this morning. It says Supreme Court gives compromise rulings on application by various parties to be enjoined to presidential poll petition, but defers ruling on Raila's bid to access to all firms 34A and IBC computer servers to 9 a.m. today. This story continues on page 6 of the Standard today, and you can also see a related picture as well on the front page of the Standard as well. Also, plastic bags now illegal in Kenya. Be reminded, today is a day. And also, we have on Friday, court refused to stop new law to sow new law, well, that seems there's a typo there. New law from today, carrying papers, bags is criminal. Be reminded, this is what is on the front page of the Standard this morning. Let's move on quickly and we'll see what we have in other dailies as well. We can cross over, but before we go there to other stories or other newspapers across the borders, we have a Business Daily as well. Ministers to walk away with 14 million shillings instead of pay. Gratuity rule entitles CSS to the cash even if reappointed to new cabinet. This is a story that you want to follow on page 4 of the Business Daily today. Cabinet secretaries who have served in President Uhuru Kenyatta's government since 2013 are set to walk away with 14.6 million shillings each in gratuity payment when a new government is formed. This is a story on the front page of the Business Daily. Also, Wanjigi is 16 million shilling. Wanjigi in 16 million shillings helicopter debt row is another story that you want to follow on page 4 of the Business Daily. Kenya women having fewest children in East Africa. Kenyan women are having the lowest number of children in East Africa, translating to smaller family sizes compared to their counterparts in Burundi and Uganda, which are leading the region's childbearing race. A new released report shows that Kenya's fertility rate, average births per woman, has stagnated at 3.9%, or about 4 children in the past 2 years, having dropped from an average of 5 in 2008. You can read the rest of the story also on page 4 of the Business Daily today. Also, low demand, new delays in county SGR plan is another story that you want to follow. The digits, right? That is 100 million, the number of plastic bags that Kenyan retail outlets distribute to shoppers annually. You can follow that story in the Business Daily today. In Uganda, this is your paper this morning. I survived poison 3 times while VP. This is what Bukenya is saying. This is on the front page of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. Speaks about surviving stage managed accident. Also says Baganda are full of intrigue, bought with little money. And schools, prisons top in depleting forests. You can follow the story inside the Daily Monitor in Uganda. In Tanzania, you have a citizen agony of demolition victims as lives turned upside down. People who lived relatively comfortable lives only weeks ago suddenly find themselves staring at destitution in the face. Dozens live in the open after their houses were demolished to pave the way for road expansion in Dar. That story continues on page 2 of a citizen in Dar es Salaam or in Tanzania. You can follow also what is on the front page of Mwananchi, jinamizi la uchaguzi mkuu wa 2015 bado laitesa CCM. This is a story that is on the front page of Mwananchi as well. You can follow that story. Let's see what we have also in this week's the East African. Total hints at, or Total I should say, Total hints at moving Kenya's oil through Uganda pipeline. Consolidation after buying our out masks French farm could seek to influence route to market. This is the story that you want to follow. The full report on page 6 of the East African this week. And Rwanda Air goes for new routes to drive profits. Carrier banks on West African hub. US plan to return to profitability is a story that you want to follow. Full report on page 14. And regional trade on unfriendly terms. Kenya, Tanzania frustrate each other with non-tariffs or non-tariff barriers and protectionist measures. This story is well fleshed out on page 3 and 5 of the East African this week. I want to show you also what we have on the front page of the Taifa Leo. Raila amgekia Mungu kesi kianza. This is a story on the front page of Taifa Leo. Ahudhuria ibada za makanisa akiamini kesi yake ya kupinga matokeo ya kura za urais itafaulu. This story continues on page 2 of Taifa Leo. Let's move on and we'll see what we have as the editorial cartoons today. And I have a few of them. This is what Iga has drawn in the Daily Nation today. Remember today also, it is back to school. And this is how also maybe some of the kids in the house will be reacting this morning, they're watching fixated on the Cartoon Network. So it's going to be a battle between the mom and also the kids. Right, we see also what we have inside, beg your pardon, this is what we have inside. This is the inside Taifa Leo plastiki, remember, it has been banned. And this is what Iga has drawn for you. Let me try and see if I can get one for you from Stano as well. Stano, what has drawn for us? Let me try and see if I can capture that quickly for you inside the People Daily. And this is what Stano has drawn for you as well. Promises to the people, they have been trusted, and the MPs now, they're straining at the leash to get new pay, huge salaries and allowances. This is what we have on the front page, on the editorial page of the People Daily today. Grab a copy of the Daily Nation, the Standard, the Star for these riveting stories. For now, let's put this horse into full run by looking at the highlights.
The ruling by the petitioner on access. There are quite a number of issues that we would consider, so we will deliver it tomorrow morning.
Supreme Court to begin hearings of presidential petition today.
Anasema itaisha kesho, na ikiisha kesho na bado mtu akona atatupa na pesa yake.
Anxiety to the start of a ban on plastic bags.
Why is it taking long for you to identify the police officer that clobbered Baby Samantha?
Baby Samantha Pendo buried at parents' home in Kunjira village in Siaya. Hello, good morning. I'm Debarl Inea. Now, the National Super Lands will know this morning whether they will be allowed to access IBC's server logs. The ruling on the application, which was supposed to be made yesterday, was pushed to today, as the Supreme Court judges said the other 12 applications took so much of their time, and there is a lot still to be considered in NASA's applications to scrutinize IBC servers and the original forms used to declare the president. The judges, however, have allowed Michael Wanaina and the Kurao Court to join the case as interested parties, and the Law Society of Kenya and the Attorney General as friends of the court.
We noticed that quite a number of issues that the Attorney General wishes to address us on are already covered by counsel who are appearing in this matter. So in the circumstances, we allow the Attorney General to appear as amicus curiae, but limit him only to one issue: the application, the issue of what was the effect of the jurisprudence enunciated by the Court of Appeal in the case of IEBC versus Maina Kiai and others. So the Attorney General's application is allowed, but is limited to that issue only. Thank you. We have one application which we were unable to complete. We will deliver it first thing tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Immediately after delivering that ruling, that is the ruling by the petitioner on access, there are quite a number of issues that we would consider. So we'll deliver it tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock before we start the hearing.
Also, remember, we shall be covering that for you, a wall-to-wall, wire-to-wire live coverage from the Supreme Court at 9 o'clock as well. Now, the National Super Alliance leader Raila Odinga is calling on his supporters to remain calm and wait the decision of the Supreme Court on the case they presented challenging President Uhuru Kenyatta's victory. According to Raila, the journey to liberation is still on course as he exudes confidence of a positive outcome. Raila, who was accompanied by his fellow principals Kalonzo Musyoka and Moses Wetangula to a church service at the All Saints Cathedral, says that the case was only but a minor setback and soon Kenyans will be liberated from political oppression by the Jubilee government. The principals have also called on their supporters to continue with their vigil until the Supreme Court gives
the court process has started, and everybody's praying that justice will be done at the courts. Today's topic here of prayer was about the journey to Canaan. And they said, as we said last time, we crossed Jordan on the 8th. We are on our way to the city of Jerusalem. We have passed Jericho. We are going to Jerusalem. And I want to assure Kenyans that we shall get to Jerusalem, that nothing, no force on earth will prevent the will of the people of Kenya to liberate themselves from political repression, political oppression, from corruption, from deceit, from misrule that has characterized the government of Jubilee for the last 4.5 years.
Deputy President William Ruto has urged the National Super Alliance, NASA, to be ready to accept the verdict of the Supreme Court on the presidential petition case presented by its principal, Raila Odinga. The DP says his Jubilee side is ready to accept whatever verdict that will come from the Supreme Court.
Ni vizuri ya kwamba hata wale ambao walikuwa na matatizo na kukubali mambo ya uchaguzi wamefuata taratibu ya katiba, wameenda kotini, kesi itafanyika, itaamuliwa. Wananchi wa Kenya tayari wameshaamua viongozi wao na Kenya itaenda mbele baada ya mambo haya ya kesi. Sisi wote tuheshimu uamuzi wa wananchi na vile vile tuheshimu uamuzi wa mahakama ndio tuweze kwenda mbele kama Wakenya. Viongozi wanaamuliwa na wananchi. Mahakama inaamua kesi.
And Court Secretary General Francis Atwoli has defended newly elected MPs against public criticism of the push for higher wages. Atwoli says MPs were not adequately involved by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission in reviewing their salaries downwards. He called upon the SRC to retain their salaries as they were and added that members of the parliament are like other civil servants whose rights ought to be respected.
Nyinyi hampata hata shilingi 100. Kwa nini mbunge aongezwe mshahara? Sheria ya kimataifa na sheria za nchi yetu ya Kenya inasema ya kwamba ukimpa mtu mshahara, ukiandika mtu mshahara shilingi 7,000 6,000, huwezi kurudisha chini hata nduru moja. As much as we hate mambo ya wabunge ama watu wengine politician kujiongeza mshahara kila siku, tukitaka ni juu yetu sisi, lazima tujadiliane. Lazima tujadiliane na hao watu wa mshahara, hao watu ambao wanapata hizo mishahara, kama wanaweza kukubali kurudisha mshahara chini.
Baby Samantha was buried at her parents' home in Konjira village, Siaya County. Pendo was allegedly killed by a police officer in Nyalenda Estate. Friends, relatives and politicians are among those that attended the burial. And of course, we have a story by Namukabo Wirunga.
On 8th August, when Kenyans went to the polls, baby Samantha Pendo Olo turned exactly 6 months of age. 4 days later, she allegedly fell victim to police brutality during an operation in Nyalenda Estate, and 4 days later, she succumbed to the injuries she sustained after being clobbered on the head by a police baton. Today, family, relatives, and friends gathered to pay her homage in a beautiful ceremony. Speaking in the Luo, her family called for justice, her mother describing her as a miracle baby, having borne her after several miscarriages and ectopic pregnancy. She eulogized Pendo as a bubbly and affectionate baby who had been of good health since she was born. The politicians present also called for justice, asking for speedy investigations and apprehension of the culprits.
Why is it taking long for you to identify the police officer that clobbered baby Samantha?
It's worse than Al-Shabaab. This is an act of terrorism. The good Lord will comfort you and give you the strength to bear this painful loss.
The issue of the presidential petition case currently at the Supreme Court, also came up at the funeral, with local politicians calling for fair judgment. As the family lays to rest baby Samantha Pendo, they say no, they will never forget her. Yes, they will pick up the pieces and move on with their lives, but they want justice. They want to see those who are involved in the death of baby Samantha Pendo apprehended and punished. Namukabo Werunga, NTV, Ugunja.
Right, we have a guest in studio this morning to take us through the raft of other issues as well. Remembering also today is a big day at the Supreme Court. We shall be covering that for you. Just to remind you again that it shall be at 9 o'clock, wall-to-wall, wire-to-wire. Live coverage will be done from the Supreme Court to you this morning. Allow me to introduce our panelists this morning. We have with us Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, who is the governor of Kisumu. Also, we have Farah Maalim, who is a former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. Also, we do have with us Dr. Shem Ochodo, who is a global leader of Kenya Diaspora Alliance. We're eagerly waiting for Gladys Bos-Chole, who is a women rep of the county of Uasin Gishu. Also, for Joyce Laboso, who is a governor of Bomet. A very good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Morning. Right, let's just begin with Professor Anyang' Nyong'o. Good to see you, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Right, we want just to go and address those issues that is emanating from Kisumu County, first of all. Baby Pendo, of course, I know you attended the Requiem Mass, and of course, so we had other politicians yesterday also bidding her farewell yesterday. We given to understand that, first of all, you claim that there's some bodies that have been discovered in the Lake Victoria that were actually in body bags. We wanted just to hear from you because you've clashed over, or also police have clashed over the claims that the security officers killed people who protested against the election of President Uhuru Kenyatta and dumped their bodies in Lake Victoria.
Yes, Inea, thanks very much. First, let me extend my very deep condolences to the family of baby Samantha Pendo, Joseph and Alessa, and all the parents on both sides, and the community in Ugenya who lost this wonderful angel. Let me also extend my deep-felt sympathies and condolences to the people of Kisumu who have lost dear ones, and some have been injured, some still in hospital, some women still staying at home with bullets stuck in their bodies, and treatment and pain management systems. I think it's really a shame that the security forces are in denial and in a cover-up. There's a big cover-up going on in Kisumu. We started immediately after the votes were cast. You do remember that it was premeditated repression before the elections. There were army and security personnel going to Kisumu in trucks, water tanks. We had 100 police horses in Kisumu. The horses were kept at the KBC Mast Center where there was a lot of grass. And so I called the police commissioner, the county police commander, and tell him, look, please minimize the presence of the police on the streets. Let them only be those who can keep law and order. But this high presence of military and security personnel is actually unnecessary, because I know the people of Kisumu, if they demonstrate, they'll be exercising their civil rights to demonstrate as the Constitution allows. It's amazing that the day that the results were announced, I live in Runda, there were celebrations on Kiambu Road almost the whole night, but no police presence. In Kisumu, where people were protesting the results, they were stopped from going downtown and hunted into the slums and clobbered and killed in their residences. Remember when I went to Kisumu, I appealed to the people of Kisumu to keep calm, keep away from the harm by the security force, and they did, and yet they were still followed into their homes and clobbered. So at the moment, we know that at least 17 people who died, their bodies are being traced. We've discovered one, which is at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga morgue with 2 bullet wounds here, showing quite clearly that he was shot from behind as the bullets came out. So we have asked the morgue attendants to take care of that. We are doing further investigations, and I don't want to say more about that because there's a strong force to keep the public away from knowing the truth. I'd like to appeal to the Kenyan government and the international community that there is genocide in Kisumu. Genocide in Kisumu.
But when you use the term genocide, that is really a strong verbiage.
Yes, it's a strong term because when you kill people and you hide bodies and put them in mass graves and then you exhume and take them to the lake, that is genocide. Or repression of genocidal tendencies. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that can help is for an open inquiry with forensic medical people examining bodies and exhuming graves and finding out the cause of death, because it's terrible.
All right, so you say also that some other bodies also have been buried at Mamboleo Cemetery.
Well, let me tell you this, and we are tracing the second. On the day after the day that baby Pendo was killed, night, and I went to Aga Khan Hospital on Sunday night and saw the baby lying there fighting for her life. I really moved. The next day, I think about 5, she passed on. That day, I came back to Nairobi. I had instructed my people to go and find out more, because I'd been to Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Hospital, and I've seen the victims of terror with bullet wounds and so on being treated. And we heard that some people had died, but from the villages, and people didn't know where they were taken, because the police went there, or the security forces. Nobody knows whether they were police, GSU, APs, whoever is dressed in security uniform. We didn't, because their behavior was like a militia, the kind of thing you hear in Vietnam or the Middle East. Going to villages, terrorizing old men, picking up phones of young people, crashing the phones because they don't want to be photographed, going into houses, eating food, ransacking the house, taking away property, getting kiosks, destroying kiosks, running away with bread. I mean, it was just terror, okay? So people were talking in very low tones and very timid, and they told us that, look, some people have disappeared, we don't know where they are. So of course we went to Jaramogi. At that point in time, the morgue attendant told us that no, the cases who were there were not, only 2 cases of people who have been fought or killed because they were arsonists or something. But then we sent our people to Mamboleo Cemetery, and they found that the previous day some people had been there and had asked that a mass grave be dug. The next day they say that mass grave be enlarged, okay? We kept on visiting, but then I think along the way we lost track. Now, when we discovered this body the other day, I asked my people to go back to Mamboleo in the evening at about 6:30, when one of my scouts, and we had opened a rescue and emergency center, Jomo Kenyatta Sports Ground, where we had received 171 complaints of people injured, people were beaten and in the house, they've prayed to come back, sexual assaults and everything. We have recorded that. 171 cases, 6 people dead, and we have the names, okay? So when we sent there in the evening, today is what? Today is Monday.
Today
28th Monday.
Monday. On Saturday night, my man went there and found an AP at 7 in the evening, armed to the teeth at the cemetery. He asked the AP, what are you doing here? The man just mumbled certain things. And of course, my guy left. So we have mounted a major operation to follow up this matter. We have discovered, 1, that 17 bodies were at the morgue at Jaramogi Oginga Odinga mortuary. Subsequently, they were removed and put in a mass grave at Mamboleo. Subsequently, they were removed from the mass grave and taken to the lake. See what I mean?
Right, but the police also, they've recorded and their statement, and they've said that this was the cause of death was drowning.
Yes, that is their claim.
That is their claim.
Their claim. That's why I'm saying we must have an independent inquiry into the genocide in Kisumu. And the best way to do it, remove the people who are head of security in Kisumu, all of them. Put in new people who are neutral, so that the junior people can talk. Because their oppression First of all, they even intimidated the media. I have evidence that the security forces have been intimidating the media not to tell the truth. Okay? So this thing must be taken seriously, not just nationally, but internationally. And so long as I'm governor of Kisumu, I'm not going to keep quiet.
All right. Let's see if the reaction from Honorable Farah. It's good to see you after.
It's like Walaga massacre, by the way.
Yes.
It's a proportion to Walaga massacre.
Wagala
massacre. It's a proportion. And the trouble is, it's happening at a time when our focus is on the Supreme Court case. So all media is focused on Supreme Court case, where something is going on in Kisumu, which is extremely sinister.
All right, Farah.
Yeah, you know, Debarl, I have grown up in an environment where extrajudicial killings have been the order of the day. And, you know, even as we talk right now, I'm missing my own relatives, about 5 of them, my own close relatives. But that was before the elections. And never been brought to court. I've never seen them where they are. And many of them also.
And what circumstances are they missing?
Well, we don't know. You see, in the case of right now, they're using it as an election thing. In those ones, probably they're using it as a way of fighting terror. But you don't fight terror or terrorists by getting innocent people and incarcerating them, or sometimes their bodies. You know what actually happens? They will go and pick these people on the flimsies of excuse in Northeastern Province, and then at some stage you will see some officers who will say, "Look, these people can be found somewhere, but you have to pay so much." In the process of trying to establish whether they have any contacts or any relationship with terrorism, they torture them. And torture them so bad. Then they realize that once you release them, now that there's absolutely no evidence, and you release them out into the public, there's going to be a suit there. There's going to be a public outcry. And the pictures of the people is such that you can never look at it. Then they just eliminate them, forget about them. And there's no trace. There's absolutely no trace. So when I hear what's happening right now in Kisumu and other places, is something that is a feeling that can only be felt by people who have suffered that. And it's a pity we have 2 Kenyas, we have 3 Kenyas, you know what I mean? Yeah. We have different parts of the country that are subject to different rules, and that where impunity is more or less the order of the day. So it's a pity. I can understand. I believe and trust everything he says because we have suffered that ourselves. We're suffering it as we're talking right now. And many people, innocent people, have disappeared. Many of them, their bodies also found in places. Others, why would you arrest an 80-year-old lady, torture her so bad, and slaughter her? The lady who was found in Mandera the other day. She doesn't speak English, she doesn't speak Swahili, she doesn't have a phone. She has her goats there. She is the stepmother of the former member of parliament from Mandera East. And the bodies, 5 bodies were found somewhere. And these are people who are taken away by the security apparatus. So we're going back. We've gone back, seriously back. I can assure you of that. And I think it's a pity. I mean, we really... You see, electoral disputes can be there, you know, as Peter puts it, and it could go either way. You know what I mean? Whichever way it goes, it's a process. There's a piece of legislation that we deliberately, as the founders of the current constitution in 2010, we've put in place. You see what I mean? And people are already in court. But when people go out there and demonstrate, and you know, they end up in Lake Victoria, or you end up a small girl of 6 months, why would you club a 6-month-old kid? I mean, well, how heartless can our machinery get? And imagine, if that's going to be the psyche up there. Today is in Kisumu. Tomorrow you never know where it's going to be. So what goes around comes around.
Right.
So it's a bit sad, and I think our own souls and conscience should be pricked in this thing, so that at least we don't forget our own humanity. The humanity that essentially we are part of the human race, and some of these things must be investigated, and the families must be, the issues must be put to rest.
All right, Dr. Shemachuodo, because we know Kisumu also was highlighted as a hotspot area. So having the trucks and also having a gaggle of soldiers really going down to Kisumu, could we say that maybe they were taking measures beforehand, before even the elections began? That's why we're seeing trucks there. We're seeing, of course, also the soldiers being deployed much earlier.
Oh, Debarl not being part of government, I wouldn't know if that was the intention. But allow me to join my colleagues to record my condolences to the family of Samantha, as well as families of those other people who have lost their lives during this period, especially in election-related matters. There was a young girl, 9-year-old in Mathare, and others who we probably still do not know. In the same vein, allow me also to record condolences to the family of Christabel Ouko, who passed in a road and grisly road accident. The last time I met Christabel, I had to hide in a home. This was in, I think, around the year 2000 when ODM goons chased me through a sugarcane plantation, and Christabel did protect me.
ODM didn't exist then?
Well, it was the precursors of ODM.
So, get the facts correct.
So call it precursors of ODM.
No, you can't say that.
Goons.
ODM just didn't exist. There was a precursor.
Okay.
Who did it?
Okay, Professor Nyong'o. That time, Professor Nyong'o was me on the other side being chased.
No, I just want the facts.
If you can protect me from the good professor, I'll appreciate it.
Just being ODM way.
Okay, Professor, just let him finish, then you'll correct him.
The precursor, goons of the precursor party of ODM did chase me. We'd gone to bury the mother of a good friend, former mayor of Moroni municipality or township at the time, Billy Adero, and Christabel was quite helpful. So I feel the pain. It's unfortunate that she's passing on without knowing who killed her husband, Robert Ouko, many years later on. So I record my condolences. Allow me also to record condolences to the family of Jerry Susan Kariuki of Dallas, an eminent diasporian media personality who has passed on in Dallas. There are many other Kenyans. I don't know whether these are signs of end times. Almost every day somebody is passing on. So I record my condolences to those affected families. Having said that, allow me to congratulate Professor, Governor, Senator, Honorable Professor Nyong'o, because the first time we are together on this platform since his election. And look forward to working together with him. We had a session with Professor Kibwana. As Kenya Diaspora Alliance, we are keen to work with governors who are likely to bring about order and good governance in their counties. So despite our disagreements in some areas, I am hoping that we'll still find common ground to move this country forward in the spirit of magnanimity. Having said that, what took place in Kisumu and parts of the country where people from my community, especially, were involved, and I do know people have corrected it. They have said this is not a NASA issue. It's not even an ODM issue. It clearly looked like targeting a particular ethnic community, which is very unfortunate. I would be happy to consider it a massacre based on the numbers that we would find. But having worked in Rwanda, I would be slow to call it genocide, because genocide ideology, as President Kagame calls it, is a case in which you want to vanquish a particular community from the face of earth. I am not sure we had reached that stage yet, but certainly what happened cannot be condoned under any circumstance. I agree with my colleagues who are calling for independent investigations. I think we did this when Chris Msando disappeared. But again, I recorded my concerns that the politicians who are making noise about this, they don't go far enough. Why don't we push it to the end? If it's Scotland Yard we want to come, if it's FBI we want to come in, why don't we put our feet down, make as much noise as we make on other issues, so that government acts on this matter to have independent, credible investigations so that we get to the root bottom. Finally, I have issue with people who believe in retaining or acquiring power through killing, through taking others' lives. We know it's said in the Bible, those who live by the sword will die by the sword. They sure will die by the sword one day. So my caution and appeal to those who may have been culpable in these matters, just remember that your day of reckoning is coming. It may not happen here, but one day after it's going to happen. So I don't support it. I appreciate some efforts that IPOA, the Independent Police Oversight Authority, has made to try and unearth this matter. But we must go much deeper. But more importantly, I'm hoping that no more lives are going to be shed, because we still have the court process going on. We don't know what's likely to happen, whichever way the court's going to rule. I want to appeal to fellow Kenyans to observe peace so that we accept the outcome of the court verdict.
But I want to make one important correction. One, for the Kenyan government to have identified certain places as hotspots was itself ethnic profiling and political profiling. That's one. Secondly, even if there were hotspots, the kind of military and security arsenal and personnel that were taken to these places was like trying to kill a fly with a sledgehammer. It was not necessary. Thirdly, it shows the ineffectiveness of intelligence on the part of the government, or the disrespect by the state of its own intelligence services of what was on the ground. Because if indeed the elections went well, there would have been no demonstrations. But because there was already a premeditation that the elections were not going to be there in the first place, or if they were there, the results were not going to be respected. Therefore, the outrage of the people was premeditated by the state, and their repression planned aforethought. Now, let me just finish. So that ethnic profiling and premeditation of fraud in the election, and therefore premeditating people's reaction, led to that excessive police presence and security presence in Kisumu that was not warranted. Fourthly, when they realized that we had advised the people to remain in their villages, these goons and militia went there to beat the people, and they said, we were given these bullets to use. We are not going to go away without using these bullets. Secondly, again, utterance of the people, of those militia, telling the people, we have come here to eliminate political vermin. If that is not genocide or genocidal knowledge, I don't know what genocidal knowledge is. This is testimony by the people. Men whose private parts were crushed. You understand? Innocent people, and they tell you, we have come here to eliminate political vermin. So that's why I want a proper inquiry to be done, so that the genocidal language that was used can tell you the intention of the state against its own people.
But we cannot say that this was premeditated because we do not know the metrics that the government used to actually identify this as hotspots.
That is part of the inquiry I want. Precisely because the outcome has been so tragic to the people of Kenya, that inquiry must be undertaken. And finally, the people who were targeted in the slums are not just necessarily Luos. We have found Somalis, we have found lawyers, we have found Giriama, we have found people living in the slums irrespective of their ethnic identity. These people went there to clear the political vermin.
Then your statement then will be premature if you say that should be investigated, and of course you are going or jumping the gun and saying this was premeditated.
That is my impression from what I get on the ground, and that must be examined. Look, we have IPOA. IPOA was the Independent Police Organization, Police Oversight Authority. We opened an emergency rescue center at the sports ground, and I'm glad they came. The Police Service Commission has not said anything. The security forces in Kisumu are in denial. They are even saying that baby Pendo fell on the floor and crashed her head on the floor, irrespective of what the postmortem is saying. This is how far they are going to cover up the thing, Debarl. So the nation must know there's a big cover-up in Kisumu of violence of genocidal proportions.
Debarl, yes. I think it's unfortunate. With due respect to Professor, he seems to contradict himself. On the one hand, it's saying it's ethnic, targeted and profiling. On the other, he's saying different communities.
Listen, my friend.
Yeah,
ethnic profiling
the condescending attitude has to stop.
No,
it's my opportunity, Professor.
The people who were killed there when they went were different communities because the slums contain different communities.
Please,
okay, just a moment.
Please protect me from that.
All right. Distort my presentation.
Can you protect me from
that? All right, Professor.
I'm not protecting, but you seem to always trying to distort issues.
No,
I say, Professor.
Let me get me clear. Yes. I say that first of all, sending the military there was ethnic profiling and political profiling. But when they went to clobber the people were clobbered in the community or in the slums were people from different communities because Kisumu is a multicultural town, not just a Luo town.
Professor, just hold
That's the fact.
Just hold
I'm not distorting anything.
Yeah, please.
No, this is a very serious issue.
Yeah, listen to others.
All right, thank you. Okay, just a moment. I need to bat in Professor.
All
right, I think then
he can't talk like that.
Just give you time to just clarify what
it's a serious issue.
Yes, Professor. I agree.
I don't like that kind of liberal nonsense.
Thank you. All right. Just hang on. Let's hear from you, and then we'll clarify and we wind up on this because also it's under investigation.
My premise is that if on the one hand we are saying it's ethnic, and on the other we are saying other communities were
affected. It's not one hand on the other hand. The people who live there are mixed away.
All right. I think take away the fact. No. Look, Debarl, there were demonstrations in the country. Last week I did ask, Mheshimiwa Manzo was here. We'd expected there would have been demos in Mombasa, there would have been demos in Machakos, in other places, Kakamega. Clearly that didn't happen. It's areas where our community are major. Even when we talk of Nairobi, whether it's Kibera or Mathare, we know those are high density spaces for our communities. So the point is, if they were being targeted because they come from that particular community, it's certainly not right. But what I still don't agree with, and with due respect, we're allowed to have our opinions, as genocide, I would be slow to use that. But there was massacre, which is not allowed.
All right, okay, let's leave it at that.
Don't tell me what to say.
All right, just okay, let's leave it at that. And broach, I think this is also under investigation, Professor. We leave it to the Independent Policing Oversight Authority. But do you also believe that Independent Police Oversight Authority will actually give you that particular investigation and the report in time? Because we understand what happened in Mumias as well. The report was just released last month, and this was last year. So there's a sort of a glacial also slowness that is coming from the air.
Independent Police Oversight Authority is underfunded, poorly resourced, with very weak personnel. The person who is in Kisumu representing Independent Police Oversight Authority has no structural arrangement to do any investigation. One individual. What can he do?
Thank you. Let's hear from Farah.
You see,
before we take a short break.
The IPOA, the Independent Police Oversight Authority, headed by one, I think, Macharia. Is Macharia?
Yes, Macharia Njeru.
Macharia Njeru. I can authoritatively tell you it is one organization that is headed by a Kenyan patriot who does everything according to the books. He is not partisan in any way. And he bleeds. I know him very well. But exactly as Professor puts it, the moment the system realizes this man is going to give fairness and justice to this, they underfunded him. Yeah. He's being sabotaged by the system left, right, and center. And the poor guy is unable to operate at all. And I'm sure all that they're waiting for is, I think, for the time to come to an end. When is the time coming to an end?
I don't know.
Yeah. But he's one person who is a man of integrity, completely above board and impeccable integrity. Mm-hmm. And I wish he just had the right resources to be able to do this. He would have done it in the four corners of the country. But when you don't get the right manpower, you don't get the right resources, you can't be everywhere at the same time. Mm-hmm. You clearly are not going to perform. Mm-hmm. That's one authority that which was going to, and this was exactly what we had in mind for this to become oversight on police brutality, on the executives, what you call excesses in terms of the manner in which we deal with the management or other transaction of law and order in the country. Because these excesses have been there with us for a very long time, since the colonial times. So I pity him, and I think our friend Chuodo Shem has been a little bit insensitive. When you talk about the death of people, and we're talking about massacres, and then you take them in such a lackluster manner. Indeed, yes, there are going to be some Somalis who are going to be caught in there, they are Giriamas, but how many? It's going to be probably less than 1%, or maybe 1 or 2%. You know what I mean? By and large, the number of people who are going to die are going to be from the community that is, has the majority. In any case, any one Kenyan's life is one life too many for us to lose in circumstances like this. And I think I don't think somebody up there who is a president or a deputy president will tell the officers down there, go and do these things. It must be some excesses that have been exercised by people down there. So we need to have a machinery in place that makes sure that this kind of impunity itself is we say never again. We had it in 2008, 2007. We're still looking at it in the face. And I think there has to be a resolution in the country that whatever happens, whatever contest there's going to be in terms of the electoral process itself, the systems that are going to work, the riggings are the non-riggings. But one thing is we should never be able to descend to a situation in which either the security machinery or other Kenyans take the lives of other Kenyans so easily and so cheaply.
All right.
Why would you use live bullets to disperse crowds? Why don't you use rubber bullets? Why don't you use water? We have recovered in our possession 36 spent cartridges and some live bullets, KDF marked. Why should the army be there with KDF guns and bullets shooting at people because they're demonstrating? What kind of country do we live in? If that was not genocide, what is genocide?
All right, thank you. And I think also we cannot really agree maybe on this podium as far as the terminologies we use, either if it's ethnic cleansing or genocide or massacre.
Right.
Just a moment, yeah. But the issue, of course, that really comes to the fore and is very sensitive is the fact that there is a sanctity of life. And one life, as Farama Amalim is saying, one life lost is one too many. So, of course, we have also to respect that as well. And regardless of your disagreement with the semantics. We take a short break right now. When we come back, we continue with this conversation on the other side of a break. Remember, today also is a big day at the Supreme Court where we shall be having a ruling on the Nasser and our President Uhuru Kenyatta versus Raila Odinga. This is on the contentious presidential declaration. So we shall be covering that for you as well. Live to live, world to world, wire to wire coverage. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled and keep out your ears for that as well. So when we come back, we shall continue, of course, on that and after other issues as well, as we eagerly wait for our other panelists to join us, that is Gladys Boschole and Joyce Laboso as well. Welcome back. You're watching Decision 2017 here on NTV, the home of the real story. We continue with our conversation regarding what will be happening today at the Supreme Court as well, and also looking at what is happening in the counties as well. So we have with us, this is Farah Maalim, who is the former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. Also we have with us His Excellency Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, who is the Governor of Kisumu, and also Dr. Shemu Chwodo, who is the Global Leader of Kenya Diaspora Alliance. It is 7 o'clock on the nose, and we're still waiting for Gladys Boss-Sholei, women rape, Uasin Gishu County, and also His Excellency Dr. Joyce Laboso to join us as well. So we shall continue with the conversation at pace. Before we took a short break, we promised that we shall be looking at what will be happening at the Supreme Court. And I hope right now we're actually done with the issue of the extrajudicial killings, eagerly waiting to hear that particular report coming from the independent policing oversight.
As we leave it, Debarl, I just wanted to concur with you that regardless of what we call this matter, certainly it's a grave matter, it's unacceptable. Personally, and I think I said this last week, my own relatives, my nephews too, were removed from where they were staying at 2 a.m. at night in Nyalenda in Kisumu, tortured, taken to the road, beaten, taken back, and then extracted again. As we are talking, one is still in hospital. So it's no laughing matter, but it's better we use the right terminology to call it. But that notwithstanding, it's a problem that needs addressing. And I agree. Let's have independent investigation and let it be stopped forthwith, because we don't need to go this route again.
All right, thank you. All right, Governor, we want also to drill deeper on the issue before we look at what will be happening at the Supreme Court as well. You have been castigated, not you exactly, but of course the current governors of firing, the county assembly or the county workers as well, saying, yes, we want to have a clean slate, starting from a clean slate as well. You have also fired some of, or you've given them, I think, compulsory leave?
Yeah,
if I'm given
the law is very clear. If you read the County Government Act, and I think better go by the law, County Government Act simply says that the CECs, when the term of the governor is over, they leave with the governor. The CEOs is a different matter in the sense that there seems to have been a lacuna in the law.
Yes.
Not because it is not clear, but because during the first term, some of the chief officers were appointed a year or two after the county government came into place. And some governors did appoint them on contracts which could go beyond the governor's term. So the Council of Governors has made this very clear in a memo to all incoming governors that notwithstanding that lacuna, the CEOs could still leave, but under arrangement that the chief officer governor determines. One of them is going away on compulsory leave, because some of them also have some issues to settle. So you don't want them to be in the office while you're trying to clean the deck. So we have done it within the realm of the law. It's not a question of some people saying, some people use the language that...
It's unconstitutional.
No, it's not. No.
But we've had also the Public Service Commission really saying what the governors are doing is not really enshrined in law as well.
Let's make a distinction between the Public Service Commission and the County Service Commission. You are two levels of government, separate but interdependent. You don't want one level of government superimposing its own rules on the other one. So the Council of Governors has written a very clear direction, which if the Public Service Commission is going to comment, they should first of all comment on that communication from the Council of Governors and write an advice on it if they think it's contravening any part of the Constitution. But it's very carefully written, by the way. So I've been a minister twice. I've been a chairman of Public Investment Accounts Committee. I've been a lawmaker for 25 years. So I'm not just about to do something which is stupid.
Thank you. Right, Farah Maalim.
Yeah, I think, as Peter puts it, there is need to deal differently with the political appointments from the technocrats who are there as part of either, who are basically either inherited from the Public Service Commission or employed by the County Service Commission. But then the political employees like the CECs have no business. It's just like, this is a replica. This is a replica of what you have in the central government. And in the central government, although we have got kind of a mongrel, what do you call, in a manner in which we have when we tried to go the pure presidential way, we tried to deal with the CSs, the county, what do you call this, the CSs, the cabinet secretaries, in a manner which is a little bit akin to being employed as civil servants, which is wrong, by the way, let me tell you, which is wrong, and that bit needs to be corrected. I'm one person who holds that the head of state is at liberty to change his cabinet secretaries as and when he wants. And in the same way, because this person, a man or woman, has got 5 years to perform to Kenyans. He has the right to choose the team that he's going to work with. The same thing also at the county level. The governor has 5 years to perform. It's fair, in my opinion, that the moment he comes in, the CECs themselves would take their time and benefits the way whatever, the benefits that they have to take, and they go home. If he chooses to bring back some of them, then he can bring them back. But the CEOs, I think, is a little bit different. It's a little bit trickier. It's much trickier in this case. So we are. This is still in a pilot process, by the way. We've only done it for the last 4.5 years. So
this is the second phase.
It's expected. The second phase. It's expected that certain mistakes will happen, and there's going to best practices are going to come out as times go by.
All right, maybe yes. Let's hear from before we come to the other question.
In terms of the political offices, if one calls it, whether at the national or county levels, CSS at the national and CEs at the county levels.
CSs, yeah.
I think the governors and the president would be right to decide who they feel they need to work with. But when it comes to the technical levels, both at the national and county level, I would want to think that what we allow to prevail is merit. Professor J.B. Ojwang often says that 3 problems that are bedeviling Kenya, and I fully agree, are mediocrity, political expediency, and ethnic bigotry. I would want to believe that our new governors, or newly elected or re-elected governors, would want to demonstrate what we may not have been able to see at the national level, of merit taking center stage. Having said that, in the counties, 1 or 2 counties in Nyanza have had governors say, I'm going to sack those who didn't campaign for me, who didn't support me in the elections. That would be the wrong way to go. And of course, Kisumu is not one of those counties that have made that statement. If that be the case, then certainly that's a wrong policy. But having said that, at the national level, because we may not come back to this topic, I am hoping we'll get to a stage where Parliament vets even companies that we call consulting management firms that recruit in the public sector. I know many eminent Kenyans who would never apply for a government job because they know if somebody is good, you would never be shortlisted because then you would block people who are earmarked to be in those offices. I'm hoping that this cascades down to the county level, that we allow merit and confidence so that Kenyans who are eligible for offices, whether at national or county levels, can apply and we get the best. Otherwise, Kenya will forever remain a sleeping giant, whether again at the national or county level.
All right. And Professor, you want also the parliamentary system of government at the county level, where the executive...
No, that was wrong. The fellow completely misunderstood me. Yeah. I never said I wanted a parliamentary system. Some of these journalists, when you're speaking, they are hearing their own things.
So this was misconstrued from what actually...
Completely wrong. And
he couldn't possibly be running for a governor of
I mean, really. I mean, it's wrong.
And then be supporting again parliamentary system. Because the leader of the parliamentary system...
You see, if you had read my articles in the Star and other articles, what I've been arguing since independence, actually, I've been a strong supporter of parliamentary system. Yeah, at the national level. Yes. Because in a ethnic society, in multicultural society like ours, having a presidential system is a disaster.
I thought that would be your train of thought as well.
So yeah, but you see, when I read it, I said, this fellow was not listening. I mean, if he was listening, he didn't understand, which is quite possible. Okay. I never said a thing like that, and so please just delete it from your memory. Just delete it.
All right. Yeah. Okay, but what do you think about what is happening? Because I think we have a lacuna. Yeah. What we are seeing coming to the fore as well is a lack of a smooth transition.
Well, right? You know, that's true.
Yes,
that's true
because we had the transition authority to be there to actually aid from one successive county government to the other as well. Even the issue of now the employees as well.
Yeah.
Now, the assumption of office a bill, I wonder if actually also captured this, because it seems maybe we're having this particular problem right now, then it will be swept under, then again we'll be facing the same challenges when we go to 2022 as well, with the new governors as well, or maybe if you retain your seat as well.
Paul Omatangi's bill on the assumption office was very good.
Yes.
Unfortunately, time ran out for us to pass it in the Senate. I think it reached the third reading, and we were so many bills in the third reading the last couple of weeks. You remember the campaigns really interfered with a lot of things that we were doing in the Senate.
Yes.
So I would believe, I would request, and since Paul is going to be in the Senate, I would like Paul to resurrect that bill, assumption of his bill, very early during the time of the 12th Senate, so that we have it in place. Because one of the things that's happening is that the assumption of, transition from one regime to the other at the county level is now very subjective. For example, I didn't understand why the outgoing governor in Kisumu didn't come to hand over the reins of power to me. Other governors did it very well, Governor Kidero, Governor Isaac Ruto, and so on. Very civil, you see. And secondly, we are having problems in Kisumu County. The governor has refused to surrender the cars, petty things. And you find that the kind of petty. There should be a procedure known to everybody that when you lose elections and when the name of the elected individuals have been gazetted, you begin the process of handing over, and there should be an institution doing so. Now, we did have a transition committee in Kisumu, which was being driven by the county commissioner, but it was much more focused on the swearing-in ceremony than anything else. Now, the swearing-in ceremony is not the only handing over exercise. There's a whole host of things. How do you hand over and make sure that assets and liabilities of the county are known by incoming governor and his team? How do you introduce the people you're working with and give in handover notes? This fellow is a rogue, that one is a good performer, send that one away, and so on. Those things are important in handing over. That's what handing over is. But in my case, we went there and we just have to start as if it is a tabula rasa, which I think is very untidy. So I do believe that Senator Omatangi's bill is extremely important for the future devolution in this country.
All right, so it is in the third reading. Is it waiting for the Senate?
Well, but the rule is that when one parliament comes to an end, all the bills and whatnot also collapse. You have to begin anew, afresh. Yeah, you see. So I have a feeling that since we have a continuation of some senators who were there before, they will be They'll
carry on with that.
They will carry on with that, but the new senators must debate them afresh. They must be tabled for first reading, second reading, third reading, and so on, because this is the 12th Senate, the 12th Parliament. The 11th Parliament is gone, so the Senate, as part of the bicameral chamber, and the National Assembly, they have to start their jobs all over again.
Right, thank you. Yeah. Okay, I wanted now to look at the Supreme Court. Of course, sub judice will not really allow us, but it is in the public domain, this particular discussion as well. We can just discuss it to some limit. And the issue of, this is where we'll pick the mind also of Shemo Chuodo, the issue of IBC's access, or IBC's server, that the NASA really want to access the server to get to the logins as well. We've heard also from the Uhuru side, or the President Uhuru side now defending and saying, of course, this will sort of compromise the integrity of a system if now they're allowed to actually get the logins from the server as well. From your expertise as well, because they said that this has not been backed up. But I think the way systems are actually configured is there is an automatic backup that really happens. For any data that really comes in, there's an automatic backup for sensitive data as this, because in case of anything, you lose that particular data and you've not really backed up. Do you think this was just a trot of excuse from the lawyers as well, or there is any merit in this particular argument?
Debarl, I take cognizance of the reminder that the sub judice regulations may not allow us to get into details on this matter.
Yes.
But having said that, I think yesterday, what we witnessed happened last night, confirm what I think have been crying all about, that we overcredit our lawyers. Why do I say this? I say this because yesterday I'd hoped that some technology professional groups that are credible and partisan and so on would have been called to bear when it comes to the aspects of technology. but I witnessed, I was saddened that ICTAC, one of the bodies that went forward, was not allowed to be enjoined as an amicus, friends of the court, but not surprised. Not surprised because I think it's also an indictment of the leadership of the ICT sector, that why have we not brought order to this sector? A couple of months ago, Nation newspapers carried an article I had on ICT where everybody is an expert, even politicians, no training at all in ICT. Every profession has got to go through some rituals to be experts. Unfortunately, this is a sector where everybody is an expert and the leadership has not done much. The sad thing is that ever since this sector or ministry was created, I've never seen ICT people proper, and they are in the country, not that the country doesn't have them, both within and outside the country. But that's an indictment, despite the fact that this sector could do so much. But coming back to the Supreme Court matter, I would, my advice, perhaps for free, to the parties in future to invest more in technology expertise and resources, but also a matter that we have talked about here before. Each time I kept asking my colleagues here, there was an ITAC, a technical committee, which is legislated. It's a statutory body in the Kiraitu Orengo law, the Joint Select Committee, that established a technical committee, which vanished. I was only surprised to read in the affidavits of some of the petitioners or the witnesses that this committee was disbanded by a court, and some actors were not even informed of it. So I'm really wondering, I'm at a loss. Maybe Professor here may enlighten us. How come this happened? Where were the representatives of the respective parties, Jubilee and NASA, when this was happening? Why did it not come to the public domain? In the absence of that, I'd also hoped that the bench would have benefited from expertise. At one time, I read they had foreign experts in this sector. From what I witnessed last night, I don't think we're likely to do justice to the aspect of use of technology in this element. And probably that's what I would say for now, which would be very unfortunate. Going forward, I think this is a sector we need to improve on in terms of election management.
But aside from actually this, the specifics of this particular case as well, not from your own expertise, this is what I'm asking you. Right? When we're talking about the backup itself, we presume, or yes, the norm is that, of course, we have a very sensitive data that you want to protect. So the issue of backup, that we need to back up or interfere with the integrity of the system, does it really come, does it hold any water?
Debarl, it may not be so straightforward. I've seen people suggesting, look, next time you get appointed people, experts in databases and so on. I was a founding president of the Very Large Data Africa Very Large Databases Forum. But I know this is more than databases. It's databases, it's networking, because when it comes to transmission, it's a different ballgame altogether. I remember we did recommend to the panel that was recruiting commissioners, make sure that at least 2 of the commissioners have technology expertise. Well, I do appreciate that they were saying, look, we are hoping that these ICT people who are eligible would apply for these positions. But that's a problem that doesn't seem to have been taken care of. I may want to extend the same call in future. Even the Supreme Court judges, let's also have those who are experts, who straddle both fields. Yesterday, I saw Professor Ben Sihanya in court on the NASA side. I do know he has got some leaning towards technology, and I was expecting that he would be a bit more at the forefront, but that was not to be. I think we need to get to a stage we realize that we are so dependent on technology. But having said that, your direct question was on the backup. Yes, I would be very surprised that a system does not constantly back up, but it depends on the amount of data, and it depends on the systems that are being deployed. I've had contradictions of SQL, of Oracle, and so on and so forth. I don't honestly have those details. I don't know how frequently the systems are backed. Are they done daily, every 24 hours, or how? But I'd expect them to be regularly done. But that's notwithstanding, access to the system I think are matters that should have come out with what we call process flow. The process flow is what the ITAC, the technical committee I keep going to, is the one who should have said, from this point, how do you enter data into the system? From this point, let the agent sign and so on. But that doesn't, I'm not private.
But access to the data and finding out all the details of the logs, how does it interfere or compromise the integrity of a system?
Debarl, once you access a system, what you do with it, I really wouldn't tell, because I don't even know what database we are talking about.
Debarl, to me, I think there are three things that are important as sources of information in this petition. From 34A, KIEMS, Kenya Integrated Electron Management Systems, and the server. And I want to refer you to the Constitution. Article 35 of the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. Access to information. And the article says every citizen, and I believe that those petitioning are citizens of the Republic of Kenya. Every citizen has the right to access to A, information held by the state, IBC as state organ, and B, information held by another person and required by the exercise or protection of any right or fundamental freedom. Election is a fundamental freedom in our Constitution. Exercising your right as a citizen to elect your leader or your representation, and it's an exercise of exercising your sovereignty under Article 2 of the Constitution. And I read you Article 2 of the Constitution. Article 2 says that, let me just see, which is very important. Article 2 of our Constitution says, Article 1.2, sovereignty of the people. All sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya and shall be exercised only in accordance with this Constitution. 2, the people may exercise their sovereign power either directly or through their democratically elected representatives. The first 2 articles of the Constitution tell you that you're sovereign and how you access it. The Article 35 tells you that as a citizen you have a right to information. And in this case, we have a petition dealing with the sovereignty of the people and their representation. And they need information to prove that their sovereignty was exercised in the election. If you go to Article 81, General Principle of the Electoral System, go to 81E. Let me just read 81, because if I don't read it fully, you don't understand what I mean. 81, the electoral system shall comply with the following principles. A, freedom of citizens to exercise their political rights under Article 38. B, not more than 2/3 of the members of the elected public bodies shall be of the same gender. C, fair representation of persons with disabilities. D, universal suffrage based on the aspiration for fair representation and equality of the vote. And E, free and fair elections which are, and this is what I'm coming to, free and fair elections which are, 1, by the secret ballot. 2, free from violence, intimidation, improper influence, or corruption. 3, conducted by an independent body. 4, transparent. And 5, administered in an impartial, neutral, efficient, accurate, and accountable manner. Access to 34A, KIEMS, and server will help us find out whether this thing was administered in an impartial, neutral, efficient, accurate, and accountable manner. One of the reasons that we wanted an electronic system of administration of votes was to implement this principle in the Constitution. And now we are saying, unless we look at KIEMS and server to find out whether these were actually used to implement 81E5, then we have not gotten the information that we need. And Article 35 of the Constitution gives us a right to get information from the state and any other body when we need it. So it is important that the court respects the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya with regard
the request by the petitioners.
All right, let's hear from Farah before we come to you. Farah, because panelists are saying that the weakness in the judgment of the Supreme Court on the 2013 presidential petitions, pointing out that unless the court is prepared to depart from the reasoning it adopted in 2013, it is likely to dismiss the election petition that is currently before the court. And of course, a lot of requests were made in 2013. We shall be looking at them as far as we're concerned in this particular program with a few remaining time that we do have. Do you think that particular judgment that we had in 2013, of course, will come to bear with this particular Supreme Court that we do have? They're the same people who started in 2013, the same template they had in 2013, also maybe in a way will actually come to bear with this particular judgment that we do have, because also NASA has expressed bugbears and fears that these are the same, the composition of the Supreme Court still remains the same, and this also might filter with this particular ruling that we do have.
Debarl, is a very important, very important sanctified provision in our own constitution. I will find out the article, which says that substantive justice cannot be sacrificed on the altar of technicalities.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a provision in the Constitution itself. Now, we have a problem. We have also technicalities that are constitutionally in the Constitution itself, like the 2 weeks itself. We made a mistake, even in the opposition and the government side, not to have insisted on a constitutional amendment that was going to give the judges not less than 30 days to determine matters of petition. And I can say,
from the 14 days.
Yes. I put that blame squarely on us, on us also, on us in the opposition. Yeah. We should have been able to agitate for this, and I mentioned this many times myself.
And it came to the floor of the House, isn't it?
Well, you see, when you can't get it through the floor of the House.
With the 11th Parliament, it was there.
Yeah, but you see, the tyrant of numbers was there.
The tyrant of numbers,
yes, when you don't have that, then we should have initiated a process in which we're going to go to the people. Because that provision is there of collecting the 1 million votes, 1 million signatures. We were supposed...
But we tried to acquire Kenya.
Yes, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute, Prof. I frankly put even the debacle we had in Okoa, Kenya, Australia on ourselves. Yeah. Why did we have to wait all the way from 2013 and then to bring this thing 1.5 years to the election itself or 2 years to the election? You see what I mean? Yes. Why did we keep the numbers? Yeah. We should have been able to collect these numbers in less than 3 months. And we should have been able to collect 3 times, 4 times the numbers that are needed. If we only went to the number of people who were said to have voted for Raila Odinga in 2013, we would have had millions of signatures. You see what I mean? And that should have been with IEBC as early as the beginning of 2014. We never did that. So that we also blame. I blame it on our side, and I've mentioned it many times myself. But instead of clogging even the Okoa, Kenya, things that we needed to repeal, and coming up with a raft of 15 different issues, we should have come with 1 or 2 people. There are only 1 or 2 issues only. Anyway, having said that, anything could happen. They could follow the president, in law. There's locus classicus, precedents, cases, determined cases before. Yes, and the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. And the possibility of them saying we will proceed on, I see myself a serious split within the. I don't want to discuss I'm sorry again. I think I've delved into an area because I'm a legal mind too, and I shouldn't be able to go into contempt of court and debating what you call the merits and the demerits of this thing. But we will wait and see. But anything is possible. I may say that. Anything is possible. We might end up saying we need to have substantive justice and forget about technicalities. And we might also say, look, the president has been set there before by none other than the Supreme Court under the guidance of one person who is highly respected in the country and the globe also, was William Mutunga. We never had the real manners in which they voted and what was the opinion of everybody. This is also another problem, because in the Supreme Court in the US, which we want to try and emulate, if there's a dissenting voice, the dissenting voice itself and is recorded. So we never do. We don't know. We don't know what happened. We don't know what they discussed. We don't know how this decision was reached at. We just have a judgment. You see what I mean? So basically, and that judgment seems to have a unanimity in that case. Whether that unanimity was factual or whether unanimity was a decision on their part to say that let's not have a split vote because we want to save the country. We might, if we have a split vote, you never know. Right. That was also another argument.
Before we come to you, Prof.
It could go in any direction.
Before we come, Shem, please.
Prof, I have a lot of respect for the ladies and the gentlemen of the Supreme Court, especially the Honorable Chief Justice, that's President of the Court, and I wish them well. I am hoping that they'll be able to deliver no lesser than justice to Kenyans in determining this matter. Having said that, I wouldn't want us to run away from the technology part because this is very core to this particular election.
Yes.
I am one of the people who is very happy that we have come to this stage where I would say about 50% of the electoral system is automated. And I think that's progress, a progress that I think even other parts of Africa could pick a leaf from. And I'm equally delighted that IBC is thinking of in future elections that we'll be moving closer to 100%, maybe 80% or 90%, because even voting and so on can all now be done through technology. So I'm happy that we are making that progress. But equally that has to go side by side with enabling legislation. I know there was an attempt through the electoral technology regulations to bring this to bear, but maybe we didn't go far enough. We need to refine this further. We wouldn't have been perfect. I think the fact that the system worked, I think most people would agree pretty well up to the tallying and transmission of results stage. That itself, for me, is commendable to IBC that this happened. Of course, that's not to say there were no problems in identification here and there. But by and large, I think there's consensus that the major problems came about when it came to tallying and transmission of results. Having said that, I think, and I want to perhaps for free, I can share with Professor the Article 35 that he cites that talks about access to information. Freedom of access to information. It doesn't talk about freedom of access to servers. And there is a difference here. Because very often when you want information from, say, Treasury doesn't get you into their servers to go and get that information. I'm not saying that it would be wrong to ask for. It would be right to build confidence. If we think there's something nasty that happened in the clouds, in this particular case, I suspect much of it happened in the clouds. It may not even be the servers in terms of physical that we are thinking of. But a petitioner or a respondent would have the right to give confidence to have access. But in that case, we need to work on our laws. So it doesn't have to be in the Constitution. It could be in electoral laws or in the regulations saying that there should be free access to the technology that was used. And in its absence, I go back to the technical committee. That's the one that should have specified. Even at the time the presiding officers are entering the results, the Form 34A, into the system to be transmitted. It would have been a requirement that let all the agents to be there to be sure that what's being typed is what's right. And even at the receiving end, that there are agents to ensure that what's received is right.
Because this is really domiciled in Article 35. But Prof, if I may remember also that we have the Access to Information Act that was assented to by the President. So what is really captured in the Access to Information Act? Because you say that, and we have it here, that every person has a right to the correct or deletion of untrue or misleading information that affects the person. This is all, of course, the right of the citizen.
Right.
So we cannot truly say that, as Prof is saying, it is totally denying also access to the servers, right? Wherever the information is domiciled, a citizen has a right to access that particular information, doesn't he?
Yes.
Right? Because we have the Access to Information Act as well. So was that also put there to aid this or to elaborate this as well?
Let me clarify. You see, the electoral laws that were amended in Parliament, which one was saying, where the government was saying they want to allow for mechanical or manual voting. If you look at the rest of the law, it's very detailed in terms of issue of access to information. Okay. And I don't think we need to split hair on that. That's something that the court can settle. I don't want to go into it.
That would be their own interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, surely, because I agree the Constitution only lays broad principles of law, and then Parliament has to pass the laws which then implement these principles. So we'll find it in the Freedom of Information Act, as well as the election laws. They are there. I don't have the thing here, but remember our debate to the Parliament. So now it's upon the courts and the lawyers to sort out that. But let me say the following. You know, we as citizens, sovereign citizens, when we go and line up to vote, and voting is a ritual in this country, by the way. In my village, on the day that we are going to vote, people wake up very early. You hear people singing and so on. And also the day that you meet your sons and daughters who have come from Nairobi to vote. So the line is kind of a community celebration. And they have a faith that when they cast their vote, it will reflect their preferences. And they will go away after they cast their vote. Their fate is entirely in the hands of the IBC agents and so on. Then what happens? And I'll give you two stories. In Meru North, when the presiding officer remained there, he chased away all other agents except those of Jubilee. And what did they do? They realized Raila Amolo Odinga's votes are 420, Uhuru's about 28 in that particular place. Raila Amolo's ballot papers folded up, given to somebody, told to run away with. We saw that in 2013 when we discovered ballot papers which are marked in toilets in Uasin Gishu. So the innocent Kenyans who stand all day ritually voting and going away finally doesn't know whether it's about counted or not. This is why having access to 34A, KIEMS and SAVA will help us cure the mischief.
You know, Debarl, when you have an article in the Constitution, an article like this, it is looking at the global context. It is looking at the holistic context of access to information. And it's not just looking specifically designed only to cure problems on electoral problems. Information has been there. For example, Peter has been put in jail in the past and many times harassed because he was fighting for change in this country as a young man. And you don't know what kind of information that's there on him. They could have an information that says this is an agent provocateur, he's a communist, the kind of stuff which was there. He works with anything. That's why the deleting and everything else and the deletions were there. You have to correct that information which is wrong, which is in the domain and the custody of the government itself. The issue now is, this is information that's in the custody of the IEBC. The IEBC is not an arbiter in court. It's a public institution that's supposed to arbitrate, or rather conduct a process that will determine who among two people wins the presidency of this country, or who among these two win. It's supposed to be an independent arbiter. For that independent arbiter to say, for purposes of clarity, for purposes of building the faith and the trust, this is the information, this is how it's going to come through our place, and this is how it's going to be reflected. You can rest assured that your votes will never fail to be captured. And to show the server itself is a sense of building trust, because that's what the body does. It's not information on other crimes, it's not information on other things, you know what I mean? I mean, the government, it's secret government information. For example, the government is not expected to tell us the confidentiality and the top secret of the government. You can't go and demand, because there's a provision in the Constitution on our military structure, on our strength in there, in the different artillery, the air force, you know, those things, you don't have to have access to that. Nobody's going to get access to that. Every country has got its own top secrets. But because this is information that affect the lives of ordinary Kenyans in a day-to-day purpose, day-to-day. And I think to say that access to information and access to server are two different things is to try and play with semantics, to try and run away with, basically. You see, there has to be utmost good faith in anything that an institution does. That utmost good faith has got to be there, and it has got to be seen to be there. And I think when we're looking at these things, and I'm sure the courts and I don't like the way IEBC is behaving right now. If I were IEBC, I would say, Fair enough. This is the information. Come and see it. We've done a good job. It's a fair job. You have to be satisfied that whoever lost, and whoever won, as per the will of the people. But to say, no, we can't give you access to this, no, we can't give you access to that, the issue that arises is, what are you hiding?
Mm-hmm. Right, okay.
So these are the kind of things that basically, and I think what happens, by the way, in any resolution or determination of a matter in court, right. One thing that people have to look at is, what were the intentions of the framers of that particular? We never look at these things, Peter. I think we have to have a system in which we have to indicate what were they supposed to cure, what mischief was this particular provision or article in the Constitution supposed to cure. Once we have that in place, I think we'll have a lot of issues.
So we look at it with
instead of just
fine,
looking at we look at what did we intend this particular provision or this particular article to cure, because every article in here is intended to cure a problem that we have suffered one way or the other.
All right.
Debarl, what Mheshimiwa Farah is talking about reminds me of Eke the Bird in Chinua Achebe's writings. That Eke says, since man has learned to shoot without missing, the bird has also learned to fly without perching. And for me, this is part of, we seem to be, for the court, there is just jurisprudence being built. We recognize there's a problem here, and I want to look at it more futuristically than now. How do we keep incrementally improving on our systems? We recognize there's a problem, how do we seal the hole? And the same applies to electro technologies. I think if we are to be honest with ourselves, let's admit there are some gray areas. Personally, I'm not holding brief for anyone. I'm not saying IBC shouldn't avail access to the information. I think some of the respondents were saying now they would not mind the petitioners accessing some of this information. But for heaven's sake, even if assuming a server was opened and we have the string of very eminent lawyers that we have, I kept hearing people saying, we need this length of time, a number of days, a number of hours, a number of minutes. With due respect, this needed to have been clearly stated in regulations so that you can hold somebody to account. For now, we are at the mercy of IBC saying, because, and I insist, I heard some lawyers argue, rightly so in court, that now some people are looking for you access to evidence, not access to information. That is itself a thin line. I don't totally agree with them, but I also cannot rule it out, because there is a little gray area. Because normally the understanding is, if one is looking for information, you know, like NASA leadership did table some printout, which was like evidence. Whether it's authentic or not, I really don't know. I can't vote for that. Ordinarily, when you say you need information, the ordinary Kenyan would have no clue. The majority of Kenyans are computer illiterate. So even if we are thinking of the framers of the law, they had the public in mind, not the few of us who are elite who can access technology. But in this regard, so my premise is, for me, for the technology, there's an important point, final, which I wanted to say. And it's something allow me to keep singing about. At some stage, and this doesn't only apply to Kenya, it should apply even to other countries, including the US, declaring electronic systems as national critical infrastructure. If we did that, then we would protect them, military level protection.
Fantastic.
Because for now,
that is going way forward.
Yes.
Let's now tackle what we do have right now, because actually we are stuck in a rut right now. But moving forward, a national critical infrastructure, the electoral system should be a national critical infrastructure. But at this juncture, because also we're really strapped for time, I wanted to know, as the custodian of electoral records, the IBC does bear the burden of making such records, as we're talking about, available when these are needed to resolve disputes. Isn't that the case? Because even me as a citizen, with the information that we've been given to the Access of Information Act right now, I have the right, if I want to go to IBC, to access this particular information, right? So even in the absence of disputes, as one correspondent was writing, I think the article, he says that making its electoral records available is part and the burden of accountability that the IBC must discharge. That there is also an assumption that the IBC will act with integrity in the management of the records in its possession. Missing, incomplete, or forged records strike at the heart of accountability. on the part of IBC and also undermines the equality of arms on which the burden of proof is founded.
Yeah, there's an important point.
The IBC is supposed to be a neutral arbiter here.
True,
right?
Agreed.
So it should not be actually cagey with also information as well.
The
Just my thought, this is what I'm throwing up to you. I'm not saying this is my statement as well. Yes, please.
The framers of the Constitution had in mind the Kenyan citizen, whether elite, mass, but the Kenyan citizen, which are described as the sovereign. With disregard to their class, education, and so on, the Kenyan citizen. That is what is the Constitution. Secondly, I think we must await Willie Mutunga's autobiography, because when Willie Mutunga was inaugurating his court, he said, and I remember very clearly, that dispensing justice to the people of Kenya will not, under my charge, be held back because of technicalities. Yes. Say that very clearly. So when we came to the Supreme Court decision, or last in 2013, and it is allowed the code petition because of technicalities, it was a contradiction. That's what I'm saying. I await the autobiography of Willie Mutunga to find out how he reconciles the principles he enunciated when he was inaugurating his own court and his final biggest act in Kenya's history on making a decision on 2013 on a basis of technicality.
Let's say from Farah will come to you. Yeah. From Farah will come to you.
I don't know exactly what happened, but of course, rumors were abuzz. And I'm sure William Mutunga is going to put that into his memoirs at some stage. Because I'm told the poor guy was one of the very few who dissented in that. But because of the precariousness of the situation we had that time, I think he went with the majority. That's why they had only one ruling, only one judgment. But by having said that, at the risk of being seen to discuss something that's in court, which is not right, by the way, we can only talk about the holistic ideas and concepts and principles here, but we can't debate the merits and the demerits of the case itself.
We're not.
We're not doing that, yes. So
debating ideas.
Yes, we're debating ideas, yes. We're debating ideas. Our brother, Shemo Chiodo, seems to have a lot of faith in the electronic system. Yes. I equally had a similar faith in the electronic system, but without going too much into why I don't think I have as much faith as I used to have before, you can have the system, for example. You can have the system, but the system is operated by somebody. The system is not foolproof to the extent when you come in as a voter and you put your thumbprint in there. You still have somebody who has to validate that. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. You have somebody, a clerk, who has to validate that and say, voted. If that clerk chooses not to validate that, that person can vote 10 times. You get my point?
Yes.
That person can vote 10 times. I'm not going to go into some of those details, but that basically is a reality we have to live with. So we have to, in the next time when we're trying to refine this for posterity, we have to come up. When you come in as a voter to a polling station, yes, you will come in as a voter, and of course, when you are found, the machine has got to self-validate itself immediately, instantly, without having a clerk to put in there. Now, I pity two groups. I pity the IBC. IBC is a very big body, but only the returning officer and his deputy returning officer and the county, what do you call, manager, are employees of IBC. The rest of those clerks out there, the presiding officer, the deputy presiding officers, are people who are recruited
by the returning officer.
By the returning officer a few days before that. Yeah, sure. So those are the ones who can either give us a credible, what do you call, election, or a discredited election. But then how much responsibility can IBC take on that? All right. That is another issue. Now let me the other bit I want to say. I also pity the Supreme Court. Because the Supreme Court, how many pages of evidence have we taken in there ourselves?
150,000. About 100,000.
Yes, 100,000. How humanly possible is it for these people to go through 100,000 pages in a matter of days here and come up with a
sensible judgment?
A sensible judgment. Yeah. We have a problem in that also. So there is a serious problem, and I personally would want to see us sit back, whatever the results of this, whatever the determination of this case is going to be. The country needs to go back again into meditation and see how we can cure some of these problems so that in future we don't have problems the way we've had it now. Because it could go either way, like I said. It could go by following the president. It could simply go by following the president because they don't have sufficient time to go through these mountains of evidence.
But we blame you, the legislatures. No, we blame you, the legislatures.
For having failed.
You failed Kenyans.
I took that responsibility.
We are the people who actually put you in the legislating house to actually make sure we don't have these kings and having all these wrinkles within the system itself. You had this particular problem in 2013. You glossed over it. Now we're coming to the fore. We're still talking about page documents. We are talking about 14 days. You are squarely to be blamed. You are the people who are letting us down.
We must not do it again.
Please, yes. We must apologize to Kenyans this morning. Because this is what we are facing here. People now are still twiddling their thumbs, wondering what will happen with the same issues that we talk over. And this is what we normally have with this country. We gloss over things. We don't squarely address issues.
I talked about that myself. I talked about from day one. And many people, including Peter, we had discussions. We said that's what we need to. Instead of loading that thing, instead of taking ages to bring in that Okowa Kenya, we should have just taken a few months and taken on 2 issues or 3 issues. That's all.
Right. Your parting shots, please. 30 seconds, Dr. Shemachodo.
Debarl, I think we recall the Professor Guy's committee was even talking of 7 days. So I gather that the 14 days was a negotiation. But obviously, we all agreed that the timing may not be enough. But in terms of the point Farah was raising that many pages within the time limited, I'm gathering that this is why the petitioner and the respondents, their submissions are going to help guide the judges. But I agree, Honorable Farah and I are saying one thing in different ways. The problem is not the technology, not the technology. Of course, the electoral system includes also the people. The problem is with the people, and that's probably where we needed to address. But part of why I was saying when it comes to the issue of, although the constitutional intention is access to information, you know, in this particular process, and one thing that my colleagues are ignoring, I want them to pay more attention to it, is the process flow. From the time, how do we know that what was keyed in was right? That there could be a problem in the presiding officer could key something wrong. We didn't have protection for that. That has got little to do with the server. How do we know that what was transmitted was not intercepted and altered? That's nothing to do with the servers and so on. And this is part of why I'm saying that where we need to focus, improving the process flow.
All right, thank you. Professor, very briefly.
Briefly, I just want to, Shem said it earlier, but as Governor of Kisumu, I really want to pass my deep-felt condolences to the family of Mrs. Christabel Ouko. Yesterday, we were together with the family, relatives, and friends at Sitam on Valley Road, one of those vigils at night when we remembered Christabel, a real gem for the people of Kisumu. She really has done a wonderful thing in the county, things in the county, all these years, especially after the demise of her dear husband, our late brother and friend and ministers, John Robert Ouko. And we will be laying Christabel to rest on Thursday this week in Koru, the Garden of Eden, really. If you go to her home, it's a Garden of Eden. She's just made wonderful home.
Thank you.
And with a lot of social services around, a library, a school, very good interaction in the community. So we're losing a mother, we're losing a sister, we're losing a gem in the Kisumu County.
Thank you.
God bless her. Rest us all in peace.
Thank you. Thank you. Farah Mali, briefly.
Yeah, my parting shots will be, Debarl, I represented a constituency in this country where we had 600,000 refugees who escaped conflict in Somalia. And in that refugee camp, I saw professors, I saw former ministers, I saw former generals, I saw all of them coming into the place just as refugees, pure and simple. Not even a name, not even a title, but just as refugees. And that's because there was a conflict in Somalia. I want to call upon the Kenyan people that whatever happens, whichever direction it takes, both the government and the political classes should make sure that there is no violence in this country.
Thank you.
We can destroy, ours. We will not be able to get it back together in many years. Decades.
Yes.
Somalia has not been able to come together now for the last almost close to 30 years.
Thank you.
And you're looking at something similar to that. And that's a homogeneous society, by the way. We are not that homogeneous as they are. So let us watch peace and protect peace.
Important.
That's the most important.
Thank you. Farah Maalim, the former Deputy Speaker of the 10th Parliament, thank you for coming through. Also, Honorable Anyang' Nyong'o, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, the Governor of Kisumu, thank you for coming through. And Dr. Shemo Chwodo of the Global Leader of Kenya Diaspora Alliance, thank you for coming through. Also, we will